Hello, my name's Jade, and today I'm going to be discussing the books that I read in April. I read 9 books in April, according to Goodreads. 3 of those were short stories though, and 3 of those were graphic novels. Only 3 were actually full-length novels, so it's not as much of an accomplishment as it sounds. But if Goodreads lets me count it as a book, then I'm counting it as a book. Let's get into it, shall we? I normally do these videos chronologically, how I read them throughout the month, but I'm going to start with Giant Days because I read 2 volumes of Giant Days and I feel like it's just easier to get it over and done with in the beginning. Not over and done with, just out of the way, because I feel like I talk about Giant Days all the time. The first volume I read was volume 11. I also read the first volume of Extra Credit, although I don't think they ever did a volume 2. I think this is the only Extra Credit they did. One of them is like a what if story. One of them is, I think 2 of them are actually them over Christmas. And this one's just like a normal volume. It's quite chunky for a Giant Days volume. If we compare the 2, can you see the difference? Yeah, you can see the purple one's chunkier. This one was okay, it was fun. I liked it more than I liked the early registration volume. I don't have a lot to say on it though. And then somewhat similarly, I really enjoyed this one. It was really cute. I enjoy all of these. I feel like some I enjoy more than others. I don't think this one particularly stood out to me. Oh, it might be long because there's like an extra episode at the end with, what's his name? Gimel? No. I can never remember his name. It's not Ed, is it? Yeah, it was fine. It was fun. Probably like a 7 out of 10. Maybe a 6 out of 10 for this one. And then the first novel that I read this month was Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating by Christina Lauren. I audiobooked this one. I was kind of in a bit of a slump this month. In the beginning especially, I only read before bed. That's my reading time. But I will generally have like an audiobook going that I can listen to in the mornings as I'm getting ready and just if I'm doing chores, when I get ready to film for instance. And so this was that book. This is the book that I listened to when I was getting ready and doing chores and stuff like that. And I didn't have an evening book. This was like the only book I was reading at the time, which is fine. You know, one book is enough at a time. I just was in a bit of a slump. I wasn't in the mood to do a lot of reading. So I listened to this one. I've listened to quite a few Christina Lauren. I have a little collection going here. I was looking forward to this one. I liked the idea of the premise. It's about Josh and Hazel and they decide that they don't want to date and they keep setting each other up on dates. They keep trying to like set each other up. Neither of them are having the best time in their romantic life at the minute. Josh is actually Hazel's best friend's brother, so there's kind of that element going on. And I think I was expecting it to be somewhat different to what it is. Like I thought there was going to be like a really hardcore reason as to why they couldn't date. That's not necessarily the case. They just kind of decide in the beginning that they don't want to date each other. They decide that they want to be friends. And actually, I found it pretty frustrating. And the characters, while they were fun, they were very much the kind of characters where they have like 2 personality traits and then this is them. This is what they're like. They felt very stereotypes. Hazel is that like quirky, weird girl and then Josh is like the neat guy. Everything's very orderly. It was fun. I enjoyed it, but it's like quite low down on my list of Christina Lauren books. I would give it maybe a 6 out of 10, I suppose. Probably a 5. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. Yeah, 5 out of 10, that sounds about right. That's still positive, that's still like 50%. Next up, I read another graphic novel. This is the 3rd graphic novel that I read this month. And that is The Prince and The Dressmaker by Jen Wang. I really enjoyed this. It was really sweet. It takes place in Paris, I believe. It's olden times, but I don't know specifically when. And it's about a dressmaker and she ends up being hired to work with a prince who likes to dress up in dresses. And no one knows this big secret and it's about their relationship and her wanting to become a dressmaker. The art style was really cute, really sweet story. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I think the pacing worked well. I don't know what else to say. I think I'd give it a 7 out of 10. And then next up was the first short story that I read. These short stories are all Scribd originals. So I'm assuming Scribd is the only place you can read them. Scribd is a book app. I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of like an audiobook app, but they also do have like PDF ebook versions of books and they have essays on there. They have quite a lot. And it's not like Audible where you get a token which equals 1 book. You pay a set amount each month and you can listen to as much and read as much as you like. I listened to all 3 of these short stories. The first one I listened to was Junket by Lauren Groff. She wrote Matrix. I haven't read this yet, but I've heard nothing but positive things. Do I need to give you a synopsis for it? It's about a writer who's kind of in a rut. I think she's recently gone through a breakup. I think that's why she's in a rut. It could be just her life in general though. That sounds really harsh. She gets recommended to go to the spa. It's about her being in the spa, essentially. It's a very strange story. There's something unsettling about it, and I really liked that. I think that was very purposeful. I think a lot of the descriptions and a lot of the way this writer is interpreting things is purposeful. I think that's supposed to be a reflection on her inner mind and her inner state and where she's in her life. And I enjoyed it. It was very thought-provoking, really well done. I started it quite a lot and I wasn't always paying 100% attention. I think I need to read it again to fully let it resonate. I read so many short stories when I was at uni. I did an English literature and creative writing degree, and I had an English module at the very beginning where it was all about short stories, and then I had like 4 different modules of writing short stories and reading short stories and studying short stories as a creative writer. I felt pretty comfortable with short stories and like analysing them and stuff. And now I feel like I'll read a short story and go, yeah, it's nice, but I can't analyse it in the same way that I used to. But then again, I used to be in a classroom full of other people with a lecturer telling us how to analyse it. I miss those days. I feel like if I had that situation when I read every short story, I'd have so much more of an appreciation for it. I feel like there's stuff to be analysed there and I just wasn't picking it up. So I'm hesitant to give it a low rating or to say that I didn't like it or anything like that, because I did enjoy it and I do think it's clever. I just don't know how yet. So I'm gonna give it like a 7 out of 10. Next up is the next novel I finished this month, which was Twice in a Blue Moon by Christina Lauren. This is a gorgeous book. Like, compared to all of their other covers, like this one just like shines. And even like on the shelf when I walk past, I'm like, that one's so pretty. Like, why aren't the rest of them this pretty? Anyway, this is not a rom-com. All of the other Christina Lauren I had read thus far has been rom-com. I think they have a couple that are more like just romance without the com. It's less goofiness, it's more serious. I didn't love the narrator for this one, actually. I did get past it. I don't think it affected my opinion. Our main character is Tate, and she has a secret with her family. I'm not going to tell you what it is because it takes us a little while to figure out, but it's very heavily implied from the beginning that there's something going on. And she meets this guy that she likes, kind of start to fall for each other, and then something happens, move on with their lives, and then 14 years later, they meet again. Yeah, I don't want to say any more than that. That's enough. Which isn't a horrific premise. It's fine. This one was very cheesy. Josh and Hazel was cheesy, but that was like a cheesy in like a weird comedy way. This was just like, it was the cheesy romance. It was just a little too much cheese for me. It didn't give me anything. It was just fine for me. I don't know. I don't think I've ever read a straight up romance and not also been literary, or it's not been like quite old, or again, other than Ugly Love. Is that a romance though? I liked it. It was fine. I wasn't obsessed with any characters. I wasn't obsessed with the story. I did like the settings. We changed settings a few times and they all felt very real. And I loved spending my time there. And I kind of enjoyed, you know, parts of the premise. I just wasn't a big fan of it. I would give it like a 5 or 4 out of 10. 4.5. We'll say that for now. And then comes the next 2 short stories. The first one was Two Scotch Men by Margaret Atwood. Margaret Atwood, very famed author. She wrote The Handmaid's Tale, as well as I think some other pretty famous ones. I've read her short stories before. She is supposed to be very good. People think she's a good writer. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just telling you the facts. And it was good. This one I think has the lowest rating of the 3 short stories I've read, which is interesting. A lot of people just kind of didn't really see the point. The way it was told was interesting. Like, it's like the narrator is telling us a story, and there'd be times where she would do these, like, imagine this, we're going back in time. And unless the narrator was a writer or like there was a reason for her to do that, because it was just a short story, it kind of came out left field for me, and I don't really understand why it had to be like that. It felt like I could hear Margaret Atwood coming in, and that was the way she would narrate it. It was an interesting story. It's about a woman who reflects her time with these 2 men that she met in France, I believe, and about their lives, which is obviously a big breath of time, but it's covered very well. The pacing's done very well. I didn't take a lot of like analysis out of it or anything like that. It was just an entertaining listen for me. So again, I'd probably give it like a 6 out of 10, I suppose. That sounds like blasphemy. What did my Goodreads say? My Goodreads said solid writing, of course, and an interesting premise, much like many of the other reviews though, I felt like I didn't get the punchline. And the way it ended was kind of strange, and it felt like it was supposed to mean something. And at the time I was almost grasping at it, but right now recalling it, I have no idea what it meant. And then the last short story I listened to was Orgy by Caitlin Greenidge, and I think this was my favourite of the three. It's weird because the other two I feel like were the more artsy and the more layered and interesting and weird and uncouth, and I like those kinds of stories. This one, it follows a much shorter time span. It's about a woman, I think she's in her 30s, and she's going out for a party, and it's supposed to be like an orgy party type thing. And so we just follow her for the one night, and her character felt very solid, the writing felt very solid, I was there the whole time, and I was able to pull things out of this one a little easier, so I don't know if that maybe has something to do with why I enjoyed it more, enjoyed my time with it. So I'd rate this one a little higher. I'd give this one more like a 7 out of 10, I think. And then the last book that I read this month was The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake, which has so much hype, and I so wanted to love it because the vibes I was getting off it were like, it's dark academia, got magic involved, not a boarding school, but 6 medians, which is what magic people are called in this world, go and live together and study as part of a society, and I think they're called the Atlas 6, the initiation group, I think that's what they're called. But I was getting like seedy vibes, like mysterious vibes, dark academia, and definitely those are the vibes. And I loved that. I loved the atmosphere, and the writing style is really dense and rich, and it has a really witty personality to it. It feels quite old school, it almost feels a little bit masculine, and I love it. There were a couple of times where I thought the writing was too repetitive, but then in hindsight I think it was just because we're switching perspectives. We see from all 6 of our Atlas 6's perspectives. I think it was a choice, and she chose to do that for, you know, as we see things from different people's perspectives. And the different perspectives was done very well. I think the writing style more or less stays the same. I don't think it changes much, but every character felt so solid and so layered and so complex, and their relationships with one another were so intricate and complex, and there was a lot that was like unsaid that can be inferred. The characters and their relationships were done so well. I cannot stress that enough. I thought they were brilliantly done. I loved reading from all 6 perspectives. I do think the weight fell on a few heavier than others. The first 2 people that we're introduced to, I think they kind of almost felt a little bit like our main characters. So the premise is about these 6 characters who are magic, and they go away to be part of the Atlas 6 to join the society. That's most of the premise. The key thing I'm missing out though is that this society, the Alexandrian Society, I think, Alexandrian Library, the Library of Alexandria, didn't burn down. They hid it, I think, to keep it safe. I think because they knew it would come under attack. The society itself and the Library of Alexandria is still quite vague. We don't know how it works. We don't actually get to see the Library of Alexandria books just like get shunted out to the people learning there. And it's much more about the magic that they're learning, and there's a lot of philosophical ideas and their relationships with one another. That's what it's all about. And a couple of them have like other things going on in the background. They all have their own motives and stuff, obviously, to join the society. There's a piece of information that we learn at the beginning that the characters don't know. And it takes a while for the characters to know. So I was a little bit frustrated. I was like, okay, they need to find out. And it felt like this big deal when they all found out. I was like, yeah, but I knew this from the beginning. Like, it's not that big a deal. I wish it was more subtle in the beginning, so we didn't know that, so we could like theorize with our characters, because it wasn't until like 100 or more pages in that we found this out. It took me a little while after finishing it to decide how I really felt about it. So I definitely enjoyed it, and I definitely liked it. And I think it reminded me a little bit of Adele Root, but for a long time I think it was one of those cases where I really wanted to like love it entirely. I wasn't sure if I did. Like, it's a 10 out of 10 phenomenal, one of my new favorite books, and I so wanted it to be because it had the potential to be. The writing felt really dense, and there's a lot of philosophical ideas, and so I feel like there were times where it just like completely went over my head. So I definitely would like to reread this without trying to figure out, because I was so wanting to figure out what was going on with the society, and that's just not what this book is about. I hope we do at some point learn more about the society and its origins and the inner workings of it, but it's really about the characters and the philosophy and the magic. I think if I could reread it without like worrying about the characters and their relationships and who's going to be with who, without worrying about magic system as much, without worrying about the society, and just listen to what they're saying, I could have a new appreciation for it. There's one or two things with the magic system that I'm not sure I fully understand. There are like non-magic people in this world, and I don't know if they know that magic people exist or not. Like, I feel like there's conflicting evidence to suggest both. I've not heard anyone else be confused though. So, IDK. The lowest I could give it would be a 9 out of 10. But I do feel like it has the potential to be a 10 out of 10. I really want to reread it before the second book, so I hope that I can do that, and obviously I might have a more conclusive opinion then. I actually do have some spoilery notes that I want to try and go through quickly. Dalton was such an interesting character, and he's like so on the fringes, but there's definitely so much going on with him. It is sus. Stuff is going on with him. As soon as Parisia, oh, I cannot remember how you say her name. I think it's Parissa. I'm gonna say Parissa because I think that's what it is, but I was in my head saying Parisia. I loved her. My favourite characters, Nico, Parissa, and Libby. Anyway, what's going on with his mind? Why is there, like, someone has locked inner Dalton in that place? Like, he's not done that to himself, I don't think. The fact that Atlas keeps yanking Parissa out suggests that it was Atlas that did that to him. So what did Atlas do to him, and why? And there's the whole thing with like how he killed that guy and he felt really bad because he did kill the guy. Did he kill the guy? I've heard theories that maybe Dalton was the one that was killed and he was brought back to life. Or maybe he killed that guy and then brought that guy back to life. Something is going on with Dalton. Like, is he in animation? He feels like he could be somewhat brainwashed. Like, right at the very end, like, he looked in the mirror and Atlas was there and he was like, oh, behold Atlas, I have to do what he says. Like, what's going on there? And Dalton didn't want to stay at the society. That woman was really surprised that he stayed. The one that Raina talked to. So why did he stay? Because of Atlas. And Atlas really wanted him to be on the team. So why? Why does Atlas want him? And Atlas really wanted Parissa as well, and for ages I was like, why does he really want Parissa? I think the end reveals why. Parissa's our strongest bet, I think, moving forward, to like figure this out. I think she needs to tell the others that something sus is going on. And Dalton knows, like at the end Nico was like, we're doing this our way from now on, I don't trust them. Dalton was in on that conversation. He knows, so he could just feed all this back to Atlas. Like, what were they, why was Dalton in the room when they had that conversation? For ages I'm like, what's going on with Atlas? Does he bow down to Ezra? Which is so funny because we have that conversation with Ezra telling Atlas this whole spiel about hunger and starvation, and I thought that, like, you know, that meant that Ezra was secretly the one in charge of the Atlas 6. Little do we know it was like a flashback. That was such an interesting seed. I kind of think it would be more interesting if that wasn't there and it was just like a complete shock at the end with like, what's Ezra doing? Why was he the one that took Libby? Because I was guessing that he was the one that took Libby. We knew he was a traveler. Tristan saw him. I think that would have been enough of a seed to be like, what the hell is going on with Ezra? Because the fact that he was there at all, something was going on with Ezra. And then at one point I was like, is Ezra the traveler that didn't make the cut? And I thought he was going to be with Bad Society, the Forum. Well, the Bad Society, because he was a reject. Rain was like, what about the traveler that was rejected? And he was like, he wasn't. And I was like, bam, bam, bam. It was so crazy. It was like, he wasn't rejected. What's going on with Ezra? Is he like this secret mastermind? Little did I know. There were hints at some point that Atlas wasn't, in fact, telepathic. So then I was like, what is his ability? Because I don't feel like it's ever ironed out. I feel like Parissa assumed he was telepathic, but then it's never confirmed. And when Raina went into his room and there were no plants, I was like, does he have multiple abilities? Can he like have the ability of the person he's with? Like, maybe that's why he doesn't want any plants. There's definitely a hint though that Atlas wasn't telepathic, so what is going on there? Does his ability fade over time? And then we get a whole spiel about how Ezra is kind of in the Atlas Society, kind of not. He's never been initiated. He was the one that died that year, which also brings up the point that he didn't die. No one died this year. And that middle year with Dalton, if he didn't actually kill that guy, or if he killed them and brought them back, no one's died for a really long time as part of this initiation process. So what is anything going to happen with that, maybe? We found out that Ezra's ability is so similar to what Libby and Nico were playing around with when they were playing around with the wormholes. And it's kind of what Libby and Tristan were trying to do when they were playing around with time. And he's just like, he can just do it. The whole Libby thing, I was so worried that she actually died. I even started tearing up, like, reading Nico's reaction to it. It's so cool, the whole Nico-Libby thing. And Gideon's mum was involved in the process. There was a mermaid involved in the process of getting the decoy, and like Dalton recognized it as an animation, and I think he was even questioning if he had done it. He didn't know, so that shows he's not in his right mind. Something's going on. Obviously I don't think, I mean, he still could have been the one to have done it, maybe. No, because Ezra, then he would be in with Ezra. Is he in with Ezra as well as Atlas? That would be cool. Is Dalton part of the Forum? as well. That's another possibility, that he's like really a secret spy. And obviously Ezra has his whole anti-hero group, his own 6. And one of them is that man that approached Rhaena, tried to recruit her to the Forum. I would bet money that Tristan's daddy is also within that group. Or not Tristan's daddy. Maybe Tristan's daddy. His old boss, like there was a company that he worked for and they kept trying to get in on the society and the library. So one of those I bet is there. Could be his ex-fiance, I suppose. The only other big thing that I want to know is Parisa. I really was interested in her background and her brother. There's a big thing going on with her brother and I couldn't figure out what it was. I don't think it's supposed to be revealed yet, so I'm really looking forward to that unraveling further. And they just all have such complicated histories and past, and I feel like the only one that we don't fully know yet is Parisa, because she's the most mysterious. She's so cool. I'm so excited for the next one. It's a trilogy. I'm really glad actually, because I think only one more would have been not enough for me. Ships is really interesting. A lot of people ship Nico and Libby. I wasn't shipping that ship. I was shipping Libby and Tristan because I thought they balanced each other out in a really interesting way. And I was shipping Nico and Gideon so hard, and it's never confirmed if they were or they weren't. Like there's so much like sexual allusions, like Tristan and Callum maybe got together at one point. Also we know that Parisa is bi. We can assume that Libby might be somewhere on the spectrum as well because of their little threesome. I really enjoyed that scene as well. My ships are Tristan and Libby and Gideon and Nico. Yeah, good stuff, good stuff. That is all I have for this video. Thank you so much for watching. My name's Jade. I hope you have a magnificent morning, afternoon, evening / night. I hope I see you again next time. Goodbye!